Well, there's some things going on in the world, of course, that we really have to, shine a light on and discuss because, we've said many times when we see all that's happening in the world these days, you start to realize just how much fear, how much uncertainty, how do we move forward, between what's going on, let's say war, Russia, Ukraine, China, what's going on in the UK, what's happening right here in Canada can be a lot of, I guess, frightening things that are throwing people off. Now, then we're looking at social change, cultural change, when we look at the woke versus the awake, when we consider the shifts in polarization and divisiveness, we're into this world that is happening all around us. And how do we actually thrive in this environment? How do we not walk around angry all the time or walk around totally, I guess, disillusioned with what's happening in the world and want to just shut down and want to quit? We're seeing it a lot and hearing about it a lot where people don't want to work, they don't want to show up, we can't get people moving, not showing up on any given day of work is just because it's like, we've given up. We don't care. There's a lot, it seems to be, and that's all anecdotal, of course, a lot of that going on. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you are likely an overachiever. You're likely somebody who is really considering, how can I be my best self? How can I actually deal with these things? What are some of the tools that I can maybe bring forward and put into our life? Now, this goes back to, again, the quote, which is, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I am changing myself. And to add to that, be the change you want to see in the world. Like, really embrace it, because always, let's get grounded in one fundamental thing: the change is always about and within us.
It is, and that's what's so interesting when I talk to people of all walks of life. The level of awareness that someone has is generally a reflection of how they view themselves. We had a person say years ago about how aware they were, and I was saying, yeah, what does that even mean? Like, I feel like I have a high level of self-awareness, but what do you mean? She goes, well, I'm just aware of how messed up everybody is.
Mm.
And she was holding herself kind of as the the temperature gauge, or the litmus test for awareness. I'm like, that's probably the least aware thing I've ever heard in my whole life. I mean, if you're not self-aware of how you're occurring in the world, and then you don't get that your life is a reflection of that, wow, we're not even in the same conversation. And the same thing happens when I hear a victim tone in people's voice, is that, if I'm hearing a victimology or a victim kind of a conversation coming from somebody about where I'm, a victim, or where something's happening to me, or there's that blame or that shame or those excuses about not moving forward or not taking responsibility. I hear that a lot more than I have in the past. And I think what's happened is that people are being told they're victims and being given a narrative that there's something wrong with them, and if they don't do something, they're not going to be safe, and if they do something, they're not going to die. So we're being told a narrative right now that is actually counterintuitive, or counteracting our natural need to evolve and to grow. I mean, my goodness, if I was still a caterpillar, I don't know, I would think you would have squished me with your heel. But my whole journey about, getting out of that restrictive kind of mindset that I was in really is what, I mean, the analogy is from obviously caterpillar to a butterfly, right? And really wanting to stretch into that. But I'm hearing a lot in the languaging right now. Some of the interviews we're doing with potential shift clients, I'm hearing that victim language, and I really am excited to help people shift that. Not necessarily change, because there's going to see their own journey through change, but to start that first initial shift.
Well, it is an interesting time, isn't it? And let's make no mistake. I mean, when we look back, pre 2020 and get through 2020, and here we are at 2023, there's a lot. There's pre, there's during it all, and then there is post. And I'm a little bit hesitant to use certain words because of algorithms. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, the world is kind of messy these days, isn't it? And there's so many things that we just have no control over, and all we can control is our, I guess, how we handle the world. And is it frightening? Yes. Is it a little bit disconcerting? Yes. Is it, confusing? 100%. Is it like the social disruption that's happening today is really just kind of going off the charts? And it's easy to fall and to be or even believe, I guess, that you are a victim to it, because it's a lot of what we're being fed in terms of some of our government and some of our policymakers. It's like everybody's a victim to what's going on. And while some of that can feel true, how we handle the world, how we move into the world is going to be how we actually change within ourselves, how we view ourselves and how we view what we're going to take on in this kind of dynamic change into a new era. So, some of the tools that we often talk about is really about reflection. It's about meditation. It's about journaling. It's about creating an environment and setting yourself up in a culture of like-minded individuals. Here's the thing is that in the breakdown of so many relationships that have happened, we've seen it. And I know that many of our listeners have either seen it or perhaps even being a part of it, family members, significant others, that there's that diversity. Now, we talk a lot about that on the show. So it sometimes seems like it's always bad news, but it's not. Many that we've seen, a lot of those changes that happened turned out to be for the better. It's like this kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call it a purge, but it's like cleaning up the mess that has built up. You're forced to kind of review relationships. You're forced to kind of get your house in order in some regards and to chart to change. Those who do will actually prosper in this new era as we go forward. We talked a lot about that this weekend.